Hi, this is Lady C. Thanks for tuning in to the special edition of The Critical Thought, which is the first episode in a series that I'll be hosting involving the struggles of Jehovah's Witness women. Imagine living in a world all alone, made to feel inferior, jeered and teased by classmates, unable to reach out to loving extended family, choose your own friends, or seek an education to help you succeed in the world. Well, today's guest lived to tell that story. In fact, she was raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses since the age of 2 years old and groomed by her parents to live the life of the ideal Jehovah's Witness. She grew up in a strict household where her father was determined to demonstrate to all onlookers that he had the model family showcased right out of the Watchtower magazine. Her father was the perfect elder in their congregation, and her mother was the perfect wife. Well, her book currently has a 4.9 rating on Amazon.com with many excellent reviews. In fact, one reader said that the book is therapeutic. Another reader plans to use the book as part of her teaching in religious studies. And she's referred to as a skilled wordsmith and a fantastic writer.
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
And the moment you all have been waiting for, the author of Paradise Bound, Carrie Bee. She's sitting here in our studio audience, ready to talk about her life experience and struggles as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Carrie, welcome to The Critical Thought. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Thank you, Lady C. Yeah, I'm very, very happy to be with you here today.
Well, you know, writing a book is no small feat. So tell me, did finishing your book give you a new sense of accomplishment?
It did, because I really would start a lot of different projects and never finish them. I was one to do that. So with this book, it was really an accomplishment for me because it was so personal, and it was something that I actually finished.
Do you think that your involvement with the Watchtower is what made you not finish things because of the end never coming?
Yes, because, you're always taught that, the end is coming. You could always start something, but don't, we're waiting for paradise. So there's really no need to pursue anything, including education, any of your dreams. There was never really an end result.
So that basically had some effect on you being able to finish projects. Well, I am so glad that you were able to finish this book because, like I said, it was a very compelling story, one that I could relate to, and I thought it was just an excellent read. And I tell people all the time that because of my busy schedule, I don't get a chance to do a lot of reading, so I do a lot of audiobooks. But when I read your book, it was like a page-turner. I was like, oh, my God, this is a really good story. But let me ask you this.
Thank you.
Why a fictional memoir? What made you choose that style?
Because there's just a lot of different people in that book. Even if somebody reads it, they might say, oh, is that me? So what I did was I just fictionalized it. It's me. That book is my life. But a lot of the characters I built around people that I knew. So just by not using their names and a lot of different specific things, I didn't want any lawsuits. I didn't want to offend anybody. I didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I just wanted to draw from, a lot of different people that I knew, a lot of different experiences that I had heard, that I knew, that I lived. I just wanted to put it all in one book.
Okay, great. Now, how long did it take you to write your book, and what inspired you?
Well, it took me a total of about 4 years, and the reason is because of time. Sometimes it's hard to sit down and actually read a book. Imagine sitting down and trying to write one when you're working full-time and you're raising children and, you're a procrastinator anyway. So I did get it out, and I got it done because, a lot of the ExJW community really inspired me. I had a lot of encouragement, and I just felt like the time was right for me to get the book done.
So now when reading the book, I noticed that you had journal entries that appeared. Did you actually keep a journal in your life?
I did off and on, not as steady, but I did off and on. But of course, I was always getting caught with it, or my mother was always trying to read it because she said, "Don't ever put anything in writing that you don't want to be found." And she's probably right about that. But when you're a teenager and you need somebody to talk to, and you might not have someone there, keeping a journal, there's really nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Obviously not.
I noticed in your book you had mentioned that your mom had found the journal, and I know because it's fictional, I wasn't sure if that was actually a true incident that happened when she actually located your journal.
Oh, yeah. That definitely happened, and a lot of different writings that I would do, she would find, and she, for some odd reason, I think believed that I left it out on purpose so that I could get caught doing really nothing, of course, but I wasn't up to anything bad. But I think that, when you're in a controlled situation, they want to know everything that's going on. They want to know what you're doing in your room, what's going on in your head. And that's really the only way they can find out is by going through your room, which, of course, me as a mother now, I had 3 children, and I definitely respect their privacy. I'm not going to go and, grab their diary and try to find out about their personal thoughts.
Well, when most girls your age were trying to decide which outfit to put on their Barbie doll, you were sitting at the Kingdom Hall trying to understand why God would destroy your non-Jehovah's Witness relatives. Tell me at what age you were when this happened.
Honestly, it was at 4 years old, and the reason I know that is because I can remember the Kingdom Hall that we went to, and that I remember that we went to that particular Kingdom Hall, because I can even remember where I was sitting when I had this thought. Mind you, I had to have been 4 or 5 years old. And I can remember sitting there listening to everything that, the adults are listening to and thinking to myself, why would a loving God, because you taught me the scripture, God is love, why would a loving God want to kill anybody who's not coming to the Kingdom Hall? Why would they want to kill my relative? They're not bad. It just didn't make any sense to me. And it really bothered me because I didn't agree with it. Could you imagine 4 or 5 years old and you're thinking this deep? I should have been, like you said, playing with Barbie dolls somewhere or watching cartoons, but instead I'm sitting in a meeting worried about the salvation of my worldly relatives, and I'm worried about their salvation. They're not coming to the Kingdom Hall. How you tell me God is loving, but yet he wants to kill my non-witness family? It made no sense to me.
Yeah, and I understand that very well because in reading your book, and I know you were very fond of your grandma Leah, and I know you were probably had her in mind when you were thinking that.
I did. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yes, and I just couldn't understand why such loving people would perish. Made no sense.
Right. Now, when your mother and father first became involved with the witnesses, can you kind of give us a little bit of an inside view on both families, how your mother's family felt about it and what your father's family thought about it?
Well, they were all Catholic, so, it was almost like, they were leaving the Catholic faith to, for this alternative type of weird religious cult. And I think that they felt betrayed that they were leaving the Catholic Church, because I was even baptized as a Catholic as an infant. I had my infant baptism, and then...
but you can't remember, right?
They felt betrayed. No, can't remember that one. But as far as my father's parents, I don't know that I think they were just... not so sure if they were what type of reaction that they had, because we weren't really, really close with them, but... And then in the book, I kind of get into the strangeness of my father's side of the family. There was even my father's brother got involved with some different types of cults.
Oh, is that right?
Through the years, yes. And they were pretty wealthy, but he ended up passing away homeless in the streets because that's how dysfunctional that household was. I think that contributes to the reason why people were... That's why I put that part in there about my father's side of the family. The dysfunction there, the abuse that occurred. I think that's why some people are prone to go to cults, because they might be looking for something, or, they're looking for somewhere to fit in. They're looking for love. I don't know what, but even my uncle went, for the really weird cults. I mean, all cults are weird.
In that one part of the book when you talked about when you all had went to your grandparents' house, and this is your father's parents, and how your grandmother had made that meal, and your mother bought the roast to the table that was the size of your fist, and she had 6 carrots, and I was thinking to myself, oh my God! But you said they were wealthy?
Yes, very.
And she only spent $5 for the whole meal.
Yes, she was very frugal. She was obsessed with wealth, being young and living for a very long time. And that's where I kind of paralleled, my father's desire as an elder, as a Jehovah's Witness, to live forever, to, in eternal youth. I kind of paralleled that in the book. So, because she was obsessed with the same thing, but not on a religious premise.
Right.
Hers was all about, she wanted to be beautiful and young forever. She was like 80-something years old, dyeing her hair blonde, getting a tan, showing her bra strap. She was a character.
You're listening to The Critical Thought.
She was very obsessed. And so like you said, when your father came into contact with the witnesses and they gave that, living in a paradise earth and so forth, then I can see where that would come from, her actions.
Yes.
And from what I could
Right.
see, there were some issues there.
Yes, there definitely was. So I wanted to put that in there so people can see what may have drawn my dad to the Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place.
Now, what was going through your mind as you went to school and you observed these other children and you realized that their lives were obviously different from that of your own?
Well, I was always reminded before I went to school, you're different. Remember who you are. And that was always drilled in my head. So I was already going to school feeling like an oddball anyway. I was different. So everything that they were doing was normal, but then
right.
everything that I was doing was, hey, I have the truth, so I'm better than them.
Right. Let me ask you this. Did you go to school with the same group of kids?
Yes. From kindergarten and up, pretty much.
Yeah, because, like in my life experience, I remember that, my dad was in the military and I traveled around. So I got a chance to get away from some of the kids that were kind of abusive, But in your
right.
situation, you saw the same kids from the next grade up, right?
Yes, year after year.
Okay. And when did the Jehovah girls start? When did that, start up?
Oh, wow. That started pretty much, we didn't have a middle school, but I would say maybe 7th grade, 7th, 8th grade, all the way up till I was a senior.
Oh, you're kidding. Because when I read that part in your book where the boys actually had the white T-shirts and wrote Jehovah Girl on the T-shirt.
On their shoes.
I was like,
yes.
Oh, my God, you really caught it.
That was my persecution.
Exactly. That was hard. That had to be really hard.
Persecution. It was. It was really hard.
Did you think any of those guys had a crush on you?
I don't know. I hope not, because none of them were cute. Sorry.
I'm kidding.
Okay. But no, I'm kidding. No, I don't think so. I think it was just, I don't know. Maybe so.
They were just little bullies.
Yeah, just bullies.
The guys, they were just bullies.
Yeah.
Well, how did they get along with other people in the class, though?
Well, ironically enough, I had spoke to a girl that I graduated with, and she read my book. And she came up to me, and she gave me a hug, and she was like, oh, my goodness, I didn't know it was all like that for you. And she's like, okay, who was this particular character? The one that we went to school with that was bullying me. Michael Shane Stanton in the book. And I told her who it was, and she's like, oh, he was picking on everybody. Don't feel bad. He used to pick on everybody. And I was like, good, that makes me feel so much better. After all these years, yeah. I feel
But you know what? I'm going to tell you something,
better.
though. The reason why you didn't feel that way is because you knew that you were the only person in your class that was a Jehovah's Witness.
Exactly.
And then you knew that he was picking on you because of your belief system. So if he was picking on somebody else, you would have never known that.
No. And he would have been picking on them for a totally different reason. Maybe they walked crooked or whatever. But, mine was because of my faith. So I was already prepped before I went to school that I would be expecting persecution.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the hardest thing. Right. Were there any other Jehovah's Witness kids in your classes?
I had 2 other ones. One was very embarrassing. She was real kind of slow, I guess you can say. And then the other one, she ended up leaving through high school, and that one didn't really count. But the one that I went through the whole way till graduation, she was kind of slow. She was in special classes, and so I was, I was a cool Jehovah's Witness.
Right. So basically, you didn't have anybody you could relate to, because that person was not on your level. So you didn't have anybody that you could actually have a intelligent conversation with that could actually say, yeah, I've gone through that, or you guys could bond and, do things, Because I know that throughout the book you talk about this other girl, Jackie Jo, and you talked about how you guys became good friends, but she didn't go to your school.
No, she didn't.
Okay.
She's based on several different friends I had growing up. She's based on about 3 different friends, different time periods. Right, because I like to write fiction. That's more where my strength is than nonfiction. I don't like to write, an autobiography. I'd find that so boring because that's what I started with, like an autobiography, but then it got so boring. I'm like, ugh, I can't do this. So that's when I flipped it, and I just did it.
You know what? I think that was very creative the way you wrote the book because, like I said, it was like like a storybook formation where you do have this family here, and everything that you're saying about the situations that happen were actually things that happened in the Jehovah's Witness religion. But we were able to get to know you and your family in that setting.
Sometimes I read like memoirs, or I'll read an autobiography, and I'll be like, oh, this is nice, but it's because I'm a very picky reader, so I wanted to be a picky writer and write something that would grab people's attention instead of just a plain old boring story of somebody growing up. You know what I mean?
Right.
I wanted it to be something to hold on to your attention.
You're listening to The Critical Thought.
And I think that's what really made me gravitate to the book when I got it, because I don't like to read, and if I have a hard time following the book because the writer is not writing in a way that keeps the book moving, I lose interest very quickly. But with your book, I mean, it just flowed. It was like a page turner. I mean, I would find myself at 1 o'clock in the morning, if I couldn't get to sleep, reading your book. But I couldn't stop. At the last of the book, I just couldn't stop. And then when it ended, I was like, okay, keep going. But like I said, I'm a true testament that this is a great book, that I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. It was an accomplishment, and it was a very personal journey, too, because I always wanted to write a book and to write about something that I know that a whole community of people would really be able to understand and relate to. Not only just former Jehovah's Witnesses, but I'm hoping maybe somebody who is a current Jehovah's Witness, to see that I'm human. I'm not a diseased, a mentally diseased devil worshiper. I'm human, and the way I grew up, maybe it would touch their hearts, or even any cult survivor, anybody who's even anybody who's even survived an abusive relationship, period.
True. Because you were so young when you were introduced to this religion, and you were practically given no alternatives to this religion, what is your advice to parents in how they're raising their children and introducing a religion to their children?
Well, I mean, I know with my children, when they were very, very young, I was still semi-indoctrinated. So I would still pray with my kids, to Jehovah, because I was still indoctrinated. I was just a disfellowship person. That's all I was. Even though I had my doubts, I still had that. You're indoctrinated, period. I mean, when you're not taught anything else. But what I tell my children now and anybody else, I understand parents want children to believe the way that they do. I do understand that. And, to a degree, you still have to keep your own mind open. Teach your children that anything is possible. You're going to have your own journey in life, just the way I'm having my own journey in my life. And you have to gather your own experiences and come to your own conclusions, because my truth is going to be different from somebody else's truth. And because it's my experience. So I believe in just keeping an open mind and teaching your kid, you're going to have a journey in your life, and you have to go with it.
Yeah. Do you think it damages a child when they're introduced to a religion and they're not allowed, and I'm talking about mainstream as well, mainstream religions, and not just a religion that's a high control group. But do you think it would have been easier for you if your parents would have chosen to be a Jehovah's Witness, but then wouldn't have forced it on you the way they did?
Oh, absolutely. It would have been a lot easier if they would have said, you're going to grow up and you're going to have your own journey and you're going to come to your own conclusions about life, and we're still going to love you, because life is about love. It's not Jehovah's Witnesses show more hate than a whole lot of groups I've even seen, religiously. Because, I do know that, there's quite a few religions that practice shunning and things like that, but the Jehovah's Witness organization, they are not child-friendly. You're going to raise your child as a Jehovah's Witness. If they leave, you're going to shun them. They hadn't done any psychological testing on what that does to a person before they implemented that, and that's their strongest method of keeping people in, that fear factor. They'll never change that policy.
Yeah, exactly. Because they really cannot afford to let that one go. And that's why when I was asking you about, what did you think about your parents, not being so strong on you about this religion. And I'm saying that because I know, being raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses myself, I know that they do teach that you have to train up a boy according to, his way, and then he will never go. When he gets older, he'll remember to go back to this religion if he left it. And so we know that they couldn't totally not give you information, but I feel like in reading the book, your dad was trying to fulfill this role as an elder. And I felt, and when you were talking about how he felt like he was looking bad towards the friends of the congregation if his daughter wasn't doing certain Watchtower things. So do you think that if your father wasn't an elder that it would have been easier for you?
It may have been a little bit if he, because I've seen, I think we've all seen people who were like had one foot in the world and one foot in the quote-unquote truth. They seem to have had an easier time of it because they had a little bit more balance in their life. But the way I grew up, there was no balance. It was go out in service. We had the book study in our house. It was all about going to meetings and preparation for meetings and personal study and going to Kingdom Hall buildings and going to the assemblies. And, my whole life, there was no balance. Everything in life needs a balance, and when you can't balance that, then something's wrong.
You mainly mentioned that your father was the culprit trying to instill Watchtower doctrines in you, but how about your mother? Did she put pressure on you to do more as well?
She did later on. I think that she was trying, my earlier years, I think she was trying to maintain the balance. We would go shopping, and we had a great relationship. We were close. But as soon as I started getting a little bit older and the balance started, I didn't really like to go to meetings. I didn't enjoy being a Jehovah's Witness daughter. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the lifestyle. I kept questioning things all the time. And when she saw that I was kind of going wayward, so to speak, I think that's when that pulled her closer to my father. And, she started getting the positive attention from him because it was the both of them against me at that point. So really
because I remember you saying about your mom was having issues with your dad and at the beginning of the book, and I think that it kind of took your mom off the hot seat when she was able to start attacking you with your father. Well, not physically attacking you, but just, giving you a hard time.
Yeah, there was a lot of verbal attacks. I felt like there was a lot of times growing up where it was like everything turned, like a simple Watchtower lesson for the following Sunday would turn into a bashing of me episode. You know what I mean?
Right.
They would turn a whole Watchtower lesson around and put it on me.
And make it very difficult for you. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
You talk about your mother and your dad's trying to live up to this title of an elder. Did your mother ever pioneer?
Off and on. Not too often,
but
she would every now and then. And this is where me in my heart right now, I don't feel like that she really, at the time, believed it was the truth. She just kind of went along with it for my dad, but she lived the whole lifestyle. She kind of got sucked in with her friends. It became her life. I think there was a period of time where she was just like, I don't know, not so much into it. So she would play the little role. She was more into playing a role than anything, just like I feel a lot of women do.
I'm just surprised, and I'm going to say this because it seems like your dad spent more time trying to get you to get in line with Watchtower than he was with your mother, because a lot of brothers have a tendency to say that they want their wives to pioneer because your mother didn't work.
Right.
So I'm just really surprised that he didn't put more pressure on her.
I think that he was just grateful for the fact that she was going to all the meetings and she was making all the lasagnas for whenever the traveling speakers would come through, and she was playing hostess all the time.
We had brothers in our congregation, too. There were elders in the congregation, and their wives didn't work, and they didn't pioneer either.
So they pick and choose. So, yeah. They kind of pick and choose what they think you should be doing.
Okay. But I don't want to give up too much information about Paradise Bound, but I tell you, there is so much information, or there's so many different stories in the book that I really recommend that you get yourself a copy of Paradise Bound and read about Carrie Bee's story, because it is very, very interesting. And I felt like it brought back a lot of memories for me as well, and really helped me to appreciate that I no longer am one of Jehovah's Witnesses, because I can really see the struggles that you had to go through in in this religion. And that brings us to the part of the show where I'd like to talk about the struggles of a Jehovah's Witness woman and what you went through as a female. Would you like to share that with us?
Sure. I mean, right after, yes. I mean, I was disfellowshipped twice, and because I didn't know how to leave. I didn't know how to escape it. I had made the mistake of becoming baptized through pressure and everything else, but I ended up leaving. I ended up actually marrying a man who was 8 years older than me. Mind you, I was about 23, and of course, the way I grew up, I was mentally probably about 17 at the time, but I ended up marrying a man who was abusive. He was not a Jehovah's Witness. He was an abusive, quote-unquote, worldly man that I ended up leaving because he was stable. He lived out of the state. I could get away from the elders. My parents were stalking me. It was really horrible, and that's what I did. And the reason I know that I did that was because I was not able to discern, a good relationship from a bad relationship. I wasn't equipped with good decision-making skills. All I knew was that he had a good job. He would be able to provide for me. I'd be able to have kids and, have the perks of being a worldly person. I can celebrate holidays. I wasn't thinking, this was not the man for me. I was thinking this was just a man that could provide for me. And, I put up with a lot of abuse, physically, mentally, verbally, and had a daughter when I had gotten married. And it was a struggle. And I had to leave him. That was a whole other struggle.
The thing is, in your book, you said that your mom told you that you didn't have to worry about your career because if you met a nice brother, then you wouldn't have to work. And I think that's what you're looking at in this relationship with this man.
He lived out of state, so it was a quick, easy escape. I wasn't told growing up, okay, well, let's go to college. Let's plan on a career. I was living a dream world. I wanted to sing on Broadway. I was just, I was a hot mess. I had no real career goals. I had no real vision for myself, I ended up getting into healthcare later on, but I didn't even think about healthcare or any type of career at the time. I thought I was destined to be an elder's wife. I was going to make hors d'oeuvres, for traveling.
That's what you grew up with, your mom making hors d'oeuvres. And, right, I see what you're saying. And
I didn't have anything cooked for me.
But looking back on all of that now, when you look at people that's trying to get out of the organization now and people that just don't think about going to college, like you're saying, or they're getting into this bad relationship situation just to get away from their parents and stuff, now you look back on it and you see something different. Do you see anything different? And if you do, what would you say?
Get yourself an education. Don't worry about a relationship because a relationship is going to come when it's ready. I end up finding the most wonderful man on the planet, so I'm all sewed up in the love department, so that's good. But when it comes to career and the future, you have to do you. We were always taught, we live in a me society, and, don't have an independent thought, and it's not all about you. It should be about you. You know what I mean? It should be about you. Go get yourself an education. Stay positive about your life. You don't need people telling you what to do. Everything, will prevent you. If I would have had the resources that I had or that we have now for people who are leaving, all the support groups online, all the resources that we have, all the websites and the YouTube videos, I didn't have that when I left. But I didn't have anybody say, hey, go online and do a little research into the organization. I sat down one day in front of the computer and just started Googling Jehovah's Witness stuff just to see, I don't know why I even sat down and did that, but it just opened up a whole new world for me.
Yeah, at what point in your life did you start Googling and learning about, going online? How long had you been out?
I was out for, let me see, I can't even tell you how many years. I had just divorced my ex-husband. And I was at work, and I'm like, man, why am I where I am right now? Why does it still bother me? Why am I still afraid of Armageddon? Why, when 9/11 happened, I'm like, oh, my gosh, paradise might be coming. And I'm like, no, then I was still afraid to go into a dark basement because I was afraid of demons. I wanted to get over all the phobias that I had still carried with me, even though I was, far away from it. And I just started researching to just free myself. It was the best thing I could have ever done.
Great.
Then I started getting very active in the communities of former witnesses. I started joining all the boards and, just becoming active and communicating with others, networking. That's something that people need to do, too.
Yeah. What type of feedback did you get besides from these from the reviews from your book? Did you get any feedback? Anybody send you any personal emails, or have you touched anybody's life?
A lot of times I'll get emails, and you are the exact same life I had. Your life was exactly like mine. When I read this book, I cried because I'm just bringing up memories that people had, that they may have forgotten. But if it's buried down deep inside you, it's okay to let it go.
Right.
It's okay to find a way to heal, because there is a lot of healing involved when you survive this, when you're surviving being shunned and you're surviving, losing your family, and just freeing your mind itself is almost traumatic for some people.
And what about with your mother's struggles? You had struggles. You felt like your mother had struggles as a female because she's actually taking the lead. She's actually following the lead of your father, who's in this position, who wants to have this model family. What type of struggles did your mother have?
Well, just wanting to, because she wasn't raised as a witness, so of course I think giving up holidays may have been difficult for her, and she probably did want the best for me. I think all Jehovah's Witness parents want the best for their kids, but they don't see, they're so blind, that they would be willing to give up their child's life for their God, for their belief system. They're going to let them die without getting a blood transfusion because they'd rather be faithful to that organization than give their child a blood transfusion and worry about getting disfellowshipped after that. It's all fear.
Right.
I think she's been, held in fear just like the rest of them. I can't get mad at her. It's painful, but I do understand, by researching, I do understand the level of brainwashing and the level of just what they go through. We as ex-witnesses have the advantage of knowing their thoughts, their thought process, what they're trained. We know both sides. They don't know what it's like to be free, so I try to be understanding as much as I can.
Well, yeah, that is definitely true. You have to try to understand, because you know what they don't know. They don't understand that this is not the truth, and you like you said, you're on both sides of the coin, and it's just very difficult to see them continue on in the path that they're going down, knowing that there is no paradise the way they feel that it's going to be in a new system. And after leaving the organization, how has your newfound knowledge changed the perspective on your life now?
Well, I feel that through the hate of my parents, through the hate of these individuals that they've had for me and for the other ones who have chose to leave, I feel like I've learned love. I learned what love is. I learned to love unconditionally and to love completely. And I feel that that's one of the things that I came out of it with. I have a lot of tolerance for people. I respect different people's beliefs. I respect people's lifestyles. I don't judge. I judge wisely. And that's really what I've taken away from my experience.
Yeah, because being a Jehovah's Witness is definitely a learning experience, and because we were living our lives and we were always being taunted and persecuted, as it were, it really makes you feel a more compassion for other people. With respect to relationship, what kind of advice can you give to the females that may be listening to the show about relationships and what you would suggest that they do?
Well, as a former Jehovah's Witness, and I'm sure you can relate to this, going to conventions, you're always looking for somebody of the opposite sex. You're always looking for, okay, I think the sisters kind of outweigh the brothers. So you're kind of looking and looking, and you almost, to a point where you see a lot of them, and you're pretty desperate, acting pretty desperate, And I think if you just abandon that mentality, just abandon it altogether, because there's always somebody out there for you. You don't have to give up yourself. You don't have to take the first guy that walks by. You don't have to, or girl or whoever you're into, you don't have to just settle for, someone just because you think that, paradise is coming and you got to hurry up and get a mate, or you're going to be an old spinster.
Right.
You have to abandon that mentality.
I think that's the issue that we had. A lot of young people in the congregation get married at a young age because they're not encouraged to seek a career or to seek higher education. Nope. So the only thing that they have left is to get married.
Right.
And you're saying don't even think about it. Just live your life and
do yourself, and then find somebody
do you
that's gonna,
first.
Right. And then find somebody who's going to look at you and respect you for what you're doing and want to enhance what you're doing. And,
right.
And vice versa. Somebody you got to complement each other. You can't just like somebody just because you have the same religious beliefs, or that's not just. You have to just let all that go. It's okay.
So, Carrie, are you planning a follow-up book to discuss what you are doing in your life now?
I am. I want to expand my characters. I want to let people know what happens in the aftermath.
But how are you coping with the fact that your parents will have nothing to do with you since leaving the organization?
Well, for years it took me time to, I always wanted to get their love. I wanted their acceptance. But it took me a while to realize that I'm pretty much dead to them, and I pretty much have to accept that. Now, if they were to understand where I'm coming from, or if they would at least respect the way I feel, or if they decided that they would like to research the organization for themselves and leave, and if they came to me, I would be the first one to forgive, because that's just who I've become. But I don't really see that happening. If it would, that would be wonderful, but I've just learned to live with it.
A lot of the experiences that I've seen on the Internet, I've seen that most people that leave the organization hit a snag in the organization. I know this one family, a husband got hurt working on a building project, and the brothers were more in tune to a lawsuit being filed against the organization than they were with the health of this brother. And that's actually how they got out. Because they started thinking, wait a minute, I almost died, and you're talking about you're wondering about whether the society is going to be sued or not. And so when you find people that they have a bad experience in the organization, then they start looking and thinking about, wait a minute, what kind of religion is this? Never lose hope, because you never know if your parents would ever get out. If something were to happen in their lives that that they could get out, just don't ever lose hope. I really feel like you would rejoice seeing them come out the same way a Jehovah's Witness rejoices when somebody gets baptized. Well, we've run out of time on our show, so for anyone who wants to go on an emotional journey and learn the life of a person that lived as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, Paradise Bound is the book for you, because I know a lot of people think that when a person leaves the Jehovah's Witness religion, they feel like you should just get on with your life. But they don't understand what really transpires in the life of a Jehovah's Witness. And Paradise Bound will help you to do just that. Carrie's going to let us know how you can get a copy of the book Paradise Bound.
You can go to Amazon.com and order it. You can get it as a paperback or as an ebook for your Kindle. You can also go to BarnesandNoble.com and get it there, as also for the Nook. And you can also go to Google Play and download it. iBooks or iTunes, you can get it there. And you can just Google it and just find it. It's easy to find. So, Paradise Bound by Carrie Bee.
This has been Lady C with A Critical Thought. Thank you so much, Carrie, for being on our show.
Well, thank you, Lady C. I thoroughly enjoyed being on The Critical Thought today with you.
If you would like to send Carrie an email, you can reach her at carrie.sammons@yahoo.com. To like her on Facebook, type in Paradise Bound by Carrie Bee in the search engine on Facebook. If you would like to follow her on Twitter, you can do so at @bound_Carrie.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.